Looks like I'm live. I don't know what happens to my feed every morning. You know, times have changed. I don't typically go out in public looking like this, but I have recently, and it's scary. I actually was able to go into a store, and they would actually let me leave. There are some problems with this, though, when you go live or you go into a store looking like this. When I bring my coffee to drink this morning, that's the problem. But you know, times are changing, and we need to be willing to change with the times so that we can still be effective for the Lord in these types of times. So I want to share a few things with you this morning from Psalm chapter 91. And someone recently challenged me to look at this psalm and to look at it in detail. So I just want to share a few verses with you, point out a few words, and give a few examples, and hopefully this will be an encouragement to your heart today. So Psalm chapter 91, and what does it mean, and how can we use it in our lives? So here's the first part of Psalm chapter 91. It says this: "He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God in whom I trust. For it is he who delivers you from the snare of the trapper and from the deadly pestilence. He will cover you with his pinions, and under his wing you may seek refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and a bulwark." The word fortress actually means it like a net to catch you when you're falling, a net to capture you when you're going astray. But you see these words that I've highlighted in bold letters: refuge, cover you, shield, and bulwark. As I began to look at these verses, I began to see that we approach God in many different ways. And one of the ways we approach God is out of fear. We have fear. God, we don't know what's going on. There's a lot of things happening in our lives. I'm fearful, Lord. So I need a protector. And that's how we approach God, as a fear, and we come to him, Lord, protect us, or protect our friends, or protect our loved ones. And so, you know, an example of that was back when I was in junior high school. I came home one afternoon to an empty house. And shortly after I got home, it was getting darker and darker outside as an approaching thunderstorm came toward our house. The thunder got louder and louder. I ran into the utility room and pulled out a lantern and set it on the table, and was scared and began to pray. And all of a sudden, I heard the loudest boom I've ever heard in my life, with a big flash of lightning, as lightning struck a tree just outside the window about 8 feet from where I was sitting. At this point, I was no longer in my chair, but I was under the table, praying, God, protect me. Lord, protect me. Please send somebody to protect me. And a lot of times, that's how we come to God, as our protector. Then further in Psalm chapter 91, we read these words. It says, "For you have made the Lord my refuge, even the Most High, your dwelling place. No evil will befall you, nor will any plague come near your tent." And I highlighted a couple of words like dwelling place and tent, because when I think of those places, a dwelling place, I think about my home. Where do I go when I really am in need and when I really want something? I go to my home, because I see God as my provider. You think about it, how many times we come to God with our needs. He says we can come to him. He says, ask and it shall be given to you, seek and you shall find, knock and the door will be open. So God many times is seen as our provider. An example of that has to do with a neighbor I had in the Atlanta, Georgia area. I had 5 young children at the time, and we lived right next door to the senior adult. Her name was Mrs. Maxey. Now, Mrs. Maxey was the sweetest, friendliest lady, and my children loved to go see Mrs. Maxey, especially my young 6-year-old son. He would always go over there and visit her and talk to her for a few minutes. And it was just right across the side yard. But I think the real reason he went is because many times he would come home with a treat, with some type of food. And as he visited Mrs. Maxey, he would talk a little bit, and then he would come home with some food, and it kind of embarrassed us. And we're like, I don't want you asking her for food every time you go over there. So one day, he came to us and says, Dad, can I go see Mrs. Maxey? And I said, son, you can go see her, but you make sure you do not ask her for any food. I won't, Daddy, I won't. About 10 minutes later, he comes walking back home with a cookie in hand. And I about scolded him when he said, Dad, I didn't ask her for it. She just gave it to me. She gave it to me. Thought that was kind of strange, but I was going to trust his word. So later that afternoon, when I saw Mrs. Maxey and I was talking to her, Mrs. Maxey said, your son is the sweetest boy. He came to me and was talking to me through the screen door and just looked up at me with those sad little eyes and just stood there and said, I sure am hungry. And so what do you think Mrs. Maxey did, right? But he was right. He did not ask her for anything. He just expressed his need. And like a good God, she just provided. So many times when we come to God, not only as our protector, but we come to God as our provider. Then there's another way we approach God. We approach God, and you can see it in these verses here, the last part of Psalm 91. It says, because he has loved me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him securely on high because he has known my name. He will call upon me, and I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble, and I will rescue him and honor him. And I started looking at these words and meditating on them. Love, knowing his name and knowing the person, answering the person when they call, honoring the person. And I started thinking about it, and I saw that there's really a third way that we approach God, and that's out of love. We approach God out of love. We just want to be with him, that he's not our protector, or maybe he is our protector and provider, but he's also mainly our passion, and we just want to be with him. Now, this is my little dog. His name is Dansby. He's the sweetest dog I've ever had, and he's currently still with us, and we love him very, very much. And sometimes during a storm, Dansby tucks his tail and runs around the house and tries to find somewhere to hide. He does not like storms. He really wants us to be his protector. And then there's other times when I might be relaxing on the couch or something, and he just looks up at me from the floor with those sad eyes and goes, "Brr. Brr." About every 30 seconds he does that, and it increases a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more in intensity until we respond. He's trying to say, I've got a need, and I need somebody to provide. But the greatest thing that I love about Dansby is many times, especially early in the morning when I'm relaxing on the couch, he'll jump up on the couch, crawl up on my lap and on my chest, and just lay his head right here on my chest. He doesn't growl. He doesn't move. He's not scared. He's just laying there as if to say, I love you, I care about you, and I just want to be with you. Now, I tell you, out of all the ways I interact with Dansby, that's my favorite way to interact with him. Is when he just wants to be with me just because he cares about me and he loves me. And no other reason. There's no need for him to growl at me. There's no need to be scared. We're just together. He doesn't say anything. I don't say anything. And we don't have to say a lot because just being in each other's presence is sufficient. So as I thought about that, I thought about these ways and the ways that we approach God. We can approach God as our protector. We can approach God as our provider, or we can approach God with passion as our passion. And you see a lot of this in Psalm 91, and I'd encourage you to read the entire psalm. When we come to God as our protector, it's as if we're saying, I'm vulnerable, I need some help. When we come to God as our provider, we're saying, I'm uncomfortable. I need you to do something for me. But when we come to God as our passion, it's as if we're saying, I'm available. I just want to be with you, Lord. And you know, when you're with somebody you love, the hours pass by quickly. So if you really want to know the primary way of how you interact with God, listen to your prayers. Listen to what you say when you talk to God. Are you asking God to protect yourself or someone? Are you asking God to provide for yourself or someone else? Or do you say things like, Lord, I love you. Lord, thank you for this day. You're a good God. I'm so glad to be with you today. So give it some thought throughout this next week as to how you interact with God. And let me encourage you, more than any of the other ways, make God your passion. Love Jesus with all your heart, and love God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength. And as you do, you'll learn to love your neighbor as yourself, and you'll have a proper relationship if it's done primarily out of passion. Now, many of us know the name John Newton. He's a man that is famous for the song Amazing Grace. And most people cannot even name another song that John Newton wrote. But he wrote a lot of songs. And this little song, I'm not going to sing it, but I'm going to share the verses with you of this song. And I want you to see the passion that John Newton had for God. Look at these words from his song. It's called How Tedious and Tasteless. It says this, how tedious and tasteless the hours when Jesus no longer I see. Sweet prospects, sweet birds, and sweet flowers have all lost their sweetness to me. The midsummer's sun shines but dim. The fields strive in vain to look gay. But when I am happy in him, December's as pleasant as May. His name yields the richest perfume, and sweeter than music his voice. His presence disperses my gloom and makes all within me rejoice. I should worry always thus nigh, have nothing to wish or to fear. No mortal so happy as I, my summer would last all the year. Content with beholding his face, my all to his pleasure resigned. No changes of season or place would make any change in my mind. While blessed with a sense of his love, a palace, a toy would appear, and prisons would palaces prove if Jesus would dwell with me there. My Lord, if indeed I am thine, if thou art my son and my song, say, why do I languish and pine, and why are my winters so long? O drive these dark clouds from the sky, thy soul-cheering presence restore, and take me to thee up on high, where winters and clouds are no more. You know, I know that our society and our country is going through a tough time right now. But you know, we've been given a gift, although it may not seem like one. Most of us have a lot more time on our hands. And what we do, you can spend a lot more time with those that you love. And hopefully, the one that you love the most is God. So this is kind of a short message this morning. I don't have tons to share, although I'm sure I could just go on, but you would probably turn it off by this point. And that's fine. I just want to encourage you to love God with passion today. And if there's ever anything I can do for you, feel free to give me a call or an email. And just in case you don't know my information on how to get a hold of me, this is how you can get a hold of me. And I'm grateful that you've taken a few minutes to tune in with us this morning. And I trust that you'll have a blessed day. Love God with passion, treat others kind, and stay safe out there. God bless.